Last night, Tom Morris broke that tucked away in the back corner of Lygon Street restaurant Danini's ex-Roo, disgraced AFL player Tarryn Thomas and veteran list official Graham Gubby Allen had lunch yesterday. And it's blown up the internet. This is going to test the fabric of the football club. It's going to test the AFL. We'll talk about the general fan sentiment in a little bit, but that's what happened yesterday. And I'm still wrapping my head around this because it's big news. It's still very early news, but it's big news. And there's a lot of layers to this, right? So let's go back to January 2024, start of this year. He's a North Melbourne player. Indiscretion after indiscretion, gets banned for 18 games. North sack him. He's had a history of extremely poor behaviour, to put it politely, and no real signs of remorse or rehabilitation. I think that's the big thing, right? So this news, to some, is a deal breaker. To be quite frank, it's a deal breaker. There's a lot of fans out there that are very, very upset about even being linked to Tarryn Thomas, especially off the back of what the AFL has been pushing. Round 8, I think it was, even against North, I think it might have been the zero tolerance for violence against women. And we know that's kind of the basis of his indiscretions, right? 24 years old, all the talent in the world. I've watched his highlights. I needed to learn more about him as the player, as well as him off field, to do this video because it's quite a sensitive video. And yes, on the surface, he looks exactly like the type of midfielder that we would want. But is he the type of person that we want at the football club? When do you draw that line? He's a great player. He could be a great player for us, but is he going to be a good person for us? Is he going to fit into the culture? Can the culture that Ross Lyon has said is now ranked 4th in the competition? Let's just throw the metrics out. Who cares where we rank in terms of culture? The culture's improving. We're doing work there to get it better. Is it good enough to take in someone like Tarryn Thomas and help him turn his life around? Because North gave him chance after chance. I understand that. North gave him one chance, indiscretion. Backed him up, indiscretion. Backed him up, indiscretion. Suspended, sacked him, done. How many chances? Too many chances. That's the question. And then on the flip side, there's Saners that understand why we might have been seen meeting with him. Just the general unevenness of the competition, the lack of equalisation, the fact that Brisbane could win a flag this year and they will get the number 1 draft pick. The Bulldogs finish top 4 and get the number 1 draft pick in Ugelhagen. Tassie coming in and getting all the draft picks in the world. Gold Coast, North getting concessions, GWS even. And then there's clubs like us that are forced to be creative, are forced to look around. And this is where it's taken us. Sometimes you do have to draw the line and say it's just not going to fit for us. But at this point in time, it looks like the need, the almost desperate position that we're in for talent, for midfield talent, the fact that we could go to draft this year, that's a long-term prospect. We don't look like we're a destination club, so we can't bring in ready-made guns. So what's the next best thing? It's, okay, let's look elsewhere. Let's look at a former pick 8, 2018, who took the AFL by storm and has a lot of talent, 24 years old, fits the demographic. That's from a football perspective, but from a fan base perspective, we're about people too. So it's all about what type of person is coming into the football club. And with this type of history, with this type of behaviour, that could be a problem. So the supporter reaction, as I mentioned, to this has been intense, to say the least. So this is kind of the general vibe on Twitter. If St Kilda give Tarryn Thomas a lifeline, I'll never attend or support them again. How is Tarryn Thomas' name even in a list management conversation at any club? Makes an absolute mockery of the AFL stance on domestic violence and violence against women. Seriously, do better. 30 years I've been a St Kilda member, but I'm willing to toss it in if we pursue Tarryn Thomas. Deplorable. If we sign Tarryn Thomas, I'm gone. How is this even a conversation? Tarryn Thomas, really? Exactly the publicity St Kilda needs. There's hundreds of players available out there. This club just brings this stuff on themselves. And then there's the other side, like I mentioned. End of the day, we're St Kilda. If we sign Tarryn Thomas and he stuffs up again, we just keep going about our daily business of being a meme club. If we sign him and he turns his life around, we got a talent for a bargain price like Geelong with Stengel. Another person said, he's an absolute talent, can do just about anything on a football field, win 10 clearances through the midfield, beat his defenders on the lead from the goal square, meters per game is off the charts, and his long kicking is just about always to a forward's advantage. Got dropped from Nike as well as North. I was told he just won't stop doing things that get him into trouble. All this came from nowhere as well, from the outside. He never got in trouble before all this. He picked up the footy for the umpire every time. He'd show respect to the opposition. Seemed that his teammates loved him. He looked at Cunnington like with love struck puppy dog eyes. It was devastating for it to come to this. Some people are wondering about his indiscretions. Once is enough. As we talk about, the club did mention zero tolerance to this. That clearly comes into question now. How legitimate are those claims? To, when you say what you say and then you act in a different way. That's what a lot of people think. Is it too far gone? Has he made too many mistakes? How many chances, again, as I mentioned at the top, can you give someone? And what if it doesn't work out? People get flashbacks to Andrew Lovett. That was 10, 12 years ago, whatever it was, 14 years ago. This is new. This is a new club. We talk about off-field, we probably weren't even at this level. We're better off-field now than we were then. So I can see why the club think maybe something can be done. To me, this is more of a, less about almost Tarryn and more about what's going to be put into place from the club's perspective to ensure that we've done our due diligence. That's the thing from a fan point of view that I look at is whether it's Tarryn, whether it's any player that comes to St Kilda, even if they have no public indiscretions at all, what measurements do we have to stack them up as a person, not just as a player? You can have all the skill in the world, but if you're an asshole, that's a different thing. But what are we going to put into place? Obviously, his court case is not until November 21st, so this is going to be an ongoing discussion for a while. It's not like they had coffee yesterday and he's going to be a St Kilda player announced next week. No, it could be a 2-3 year thing. I don't think that's going to negate any of the potential backlash that the club get, and I think the club surely would not be naive to think that there wouldn't be backlash. Even on their latest Instagram post, it's completely irrelevant to this news. Many people were already expressing their discontent towards this, and I've received many DMs already about that, and Instagram emails as well. So I can completely understand the general sentiment of the fan base. It's a really tricky one to talk about because I totally agree with everything that everyone's saying, that he's had multiple chances, that he's a troublemaker, and that's not the culture we want to build at St Kilda, and maybe we're getting seduced by the potential talent of this guy and ignoring all the indiscretions that he's had. And to anyone that thinks we might be the only club talking to him, absolutely not. There would be many other clubs monitoring his situation. Maybe not being silly enough to be caught in a cafe publicly, but there would be many clubs that would be looking at him. It's early developments, obviously, so that this may not... we were linked to Ben Cousins in 2009. I did a video on that the other day, and we supposed that we were interested, nominated for the draft. We backed out. We said no. The proof was there. We did our due diligence. We had our research. We had our facts. We had all the evidence we needed, and we said no. This could very well turn out to be the same. But I think a lot of Saints fans are disappointed that we would even consider it. They wouldn't even want us to be meeting with him. That's the issue. It's not okay. Well, if we do the due diligence and then we back out, that's okay. Good job, Saints. It's like, a lot of fans don't even want us to be in the same conversation, in the same sentence with this player. So I'll monitor it very closely, saying as I mentioned, this is a really big sort of discussion point. And I'm gonna obviously deliver as much as I can on it. I'll be honest, I've kind of learnt a lot more in the last 24 hours about exactly what's gone on in his life and the indiscretions. I, to be honest, didn't really know too much about it, but I've kind of chatted to a few different people and consulted and obviously read up on it as much as I can to do this video, and it doesn't bode well. I think we're building a really young, driven core with who we've got, and I'd like to think that the club's going to put in many things, in place to ensure that the right decision is made by the fans, obviously, by the club. Yeah, I know this is going to test the club and in terms of priorities. What if you get him and he plays good football and you win games and he's an All-Australian and you make finals and you potentially make a grand final and you win a flag and he's in the lineup? What then? What do people think? That's me thinking on one end of the scale. What if he rehabilitated himself? What if he played good football and was our best player? But then on the flip side, what if we get him and he keeps doing what he does? And not only that, he affects the young kids, the culture that we've built internally, that we've spent years trying to fix. And that sets us back again. And then we look at this in 10 years' time and think, remember that? Remember we shouldn't have got Lovett? People said no to that. We got him. Look what happened. The fans said what they wanted. They said the truth, and the club did the opposite, and it backfired. So I know where the fans are coming from. I completely agree with that. We've been burnt many times. And we want the club to finally do what's right. But some Saints fans think this is the right thing. That this is us being ruthless, and this is us putting out the feelers. And it's not saying we're going to get him, but it's saying he's got talent. We think we've got the culture that can fix him. He's 24. He's impressionable. It can be done. But there's also a but. There's a big but. There's that whole other side that we've just talked about for 20 minutes. And it's a big risk. So this is my sort of just reading up on the news and kind of giving you my 2 cents. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Sainers. Put it in the comments. I know there's a lot of discussion online already, but I want to have genuine conversations about this in the comments. So put it in the comments. Give me your thoughts. I can kind of gauge where I think it's going to go. But again, this is a fan channel for a reason. And it's not just about my opinion on this. It's about your opinion. And we reflect the view of the fan base, right? And this is obviously the biggest news to come from this year. And it's news that could well impact the next 5 to 10 years of this football club. Put it in the comments. I appreciate all of your viewpoints. And hopefully, as I mentioned before, the club do what's best for the fans and for the club. They go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So I'll monitor this. I'll report as much as I can. But at this point, all that's happened right now is a coffee date with Graham Allen, Tarryn Thomas in Carlton. It's not like he's just going to get drafted back into the AFL world next year. It's not going to happen that quickly. It still doesn't rule it out. And I know a lot of fans want this completely quashed and thrown out into the bin, basically. So again, as I mentioned, put your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think of this news. St Kilda linked to disgraced footballer Tarryn Thomas. Thanks, guys. I'll see you soon.